She pointed at a turn and said, "Hey, can you slide around that for us?" A couple years ago, I moved to New Jersey, and then since then I've moved to Brooklyn and New York. And I grew up in the South in Tallahassee and just south of Tallahassee, where there was a lot more space. So growing up, there were lots of fire roads to practice driving on and lots of empty parking lots that people didn't really care too much about if you went and did reasonably safe maneuvers in your vehicle. And as such, by the time I got to New York and sort of started to get into the car scene there, I realized that there is a extreme premium for space to do things like that. And so it's sort of assumed that you're a lot better at driving, I guess, if you've gotten the time to practice elsewhere and then go there and then do the same stuff in less controlled environments or on roads or things. And every time I go down south, because since I've been up there, I take every 6 months a trip from New York to Florida and back. To see family and connect with friends and film some videos for fun with friends. So I tend to brush up on, I guess, stunt driving or just fun driving when I'm in Florida and there's a lot more space. I also tend to get clips of that and record that and then post it on my Instagram and sort of block it out for the next 6 months as car content. And I had started working with a guy named Dale, who is a former NFL player, and then he ended up doing some modeling at Wilhelmina. Now, funny enough, he's going to join Rob Dahm on the alumni of The Bachelorette, which has been announced, so I can say. And he was connected with a place in Manhattan that's very cool called Classic Car Club. And they basically have sort of a social club with a restaurant and a bar and their own social scene there with a giant, very pretty showroom of all of their rental cars. And you get a membership of the place and then you can buy points to drive the cars. And I'd never heard of it before somehow. I think I'd just been so out of car culture since I moved to New York because there wasn't a lot of space to like do stuff that I was used to doing in my Subaru. And outside of that, I had a bunch of other stuff that I was trying to work on. So when I saw that this existed, I was really excited and I wanted to come by. And he introduced me to the then marketing manager who was sort of leading all of their internal content creation. And we hit it off at one of their events. I think it was a rapper album release party that they had done. And then we just sort of stayed in touch. So one day I get a text from Sherry that says, "Hey, tomorrow, filming a video. We need people to drive and play games." End quote. Like that was the whole text. And I was like, okay, Classic Car Club, thumbs up, I'm in. I don't have any idea what's happening, but that's fine. The next day I sort of block out for them and I show up in the Subaru because at the time I was living in Jersey City. I had not yet moved to Brooklyn. And I drive up and I park the Subaru and I go inside and I meet up with their video guy named Bob. And Bob and I start talking and I hadn't really spoken to him at the party where we met, but we get into it. And then eventually it came to what we were doing for the day. And he said, "All right, you ready to go to Brooklyn?" And I still had no information on what the shoot was. And I said, "Yeah, sure. Do you want to ride in the Subaru or something?" And he said, "Oh, no, we're going to take the 993. And I have no reference for Porsche, so I didn't know if this was like a $100,000 Porsche. I just made sure that I didn't look it up because I did not want to know how valuable the car that I was about to drive was. So they pulled it around front. So the car was, I don't remember what year it was, but it's still in their fleet, and I think you can take it out to drive. But it was a red 993 Carrera 4S. And it was manual transmission, and I was gonna get in, and then he was like, "No, you're driving." And I was, okay, surprise number two, that's fine. And I got in the car and I realized like the steering wheel doesn't tilt at all. It's not really made for someone that's 6'3". Very analog, possibly the most analog car I've ever driven. And to press in the clutch, you had to like work your knee around the outside of the wheel and sort of like hit it with the side of your foot to put it in. And then they're floor mounted, which I was not used to. So it was a great start. As age came with it, some of the buttons were deleted. They're probably still there, but just on the inside of where they used to be. And so one of those was the heater, which was interesting on a rainy day because the windshield was completely fucked up. So we just had to drive the windows down to get it clear again. But yeah, I think it was they have an on-site shop. And so they try to keep everything as mechanically sound as possible. And it was just a very stock, clean 993. It was definitely a cool introduction to Porsches because I'd never driven one before and I'm not particularly familiar with them, but I think I understand now. But I'm very conservative when it comes to risk, so I tried to make sure everything was like no liberties taken in terms of comfort in driving. I got to the point where I felt kind of comfortable setting out. The clutch at the time had also like a pretty bad stick in it, so I just desperately didn't want to stall in front of these people that were about to like have me picture drive this car all day. We got on the road and we made it to Brooklyn, which I was still unfamiliar with like the areas at the time, but I think it was somewhere in the south of Brooklyn, near the piers. And the first place that we stopped at was a sort of like a hatchet throwing bar. So you go in and it's a great combination. They have alcohol and axes, and they teach you how to throw the axes. So we showed up there and they had a connection, and they paid for us all to grab an axe and learn how to throw it at a pine board. After a little bit of that, we were going to go to another location. I think the theme of the video is basically what to do on a rain day with a performance car. Sometimes you don't want to just thrash the hell out of a car, so go take it to cool places. And then the second place was a skee ball sort of place. Sherry tended to have infinite knowledge for just nooks and crannies in Brooklyn that were really cool and non-touristy. So we went to that place, and then at some point there was a venue that she knew of that wasn't open that day, or there was nothing going on, but it was just a cool corner. And so we all drove over there. She was in a Land Rover Defender, which I also had to drive at some point, which was a very big contrast from a 993 4S. And then we got a couple sporting shots, like the intro and outro stuff. And then after that, she pointed at a turn and said, "Hey, can you slide around that for us?" I think I'd gotten used to the amount of surprises I was gonna run into that day, but I looked at it and it was like this off-camber, like super tilted, like how they make roads so that the rain runs off of the middle and doesn't pool. But normally it's like a degree, and this was like a small mountain. There was a manhole cover like right on the line coming out of the apex of the turn, a bunch of puddles hiding repaved like potholes. And I just looked at it and I was like, I guess so, cool. What could possibly go wrong? And there were curbs on both sides. So like I definitely didn't want to tank slap and then just go into a curb, because that was actually the first ever crash that I had in my Subaru when I was 16. They have a YouTube channel and some Instagram stuff that they posted on, but this was mostly to accompany and a sort of editorial piece to write an article on a few cool things to do in Brooklyn for the members. I saw it online on social media stuff, but apparently a lot more of the members did through their emails. So it's kind of funny because I didn't really think I was particularly visible in it, other than I think one shot where I parked the Defender and then moved to the 993, but I started getting recognized at the club. But I just figured all that stuff moves really fast, and so soon enough I'd just be another member, which is no problem for me. Somehow everything seemed to work out well. We did about 3 or 4 attempts at it, and fortunately all of the stuff that I learned down south when I was growing up and driving was in the WRX. It was an open diff, sloppy, like no coilover stock suspension WRX from 2006. So I had kind of gotten used to how all-wheel drives act out of traction, and I was honestly much more familiar with that than I was a rear-wheel drive car. So when they said slide the 4S Carrera, that was like kind of relieved almost that it wasn't another car in their fleet, because that was more or less home. And turns out it slides much better than a 2006 stock WRX with open diffs. And that was sort of the first foray into any picture driving or any sort of reminder that that was a real avenue in life. I got inspired a lot by Emil's stories on here. And I, at one point, had reached out to Jeremy Fry, who led the Baby Driver team and did a lot of the stunts for them. And one of the cool things about it is after I reached out and started talking to people, because Emil also got back to me, I realized they're super welcoming. There's not like this sort of inner circle mentality around it. They will give you all the information you need, and all you have to do is go out and use it. What they tend to recommend is like get a really reliable stunt driving car, find a business with a parking lot, cone it off, get the permission of the owner on Sundays or something, and make a demo reel. The only problem with my demo reel is that if I were to make one right now, it would be all street driving. Even though it's like controlled environments on the street, it's not like sanctioned controlled environments, which is something I was advised not to really parade.
We'd like to thank the Ticket Clinic for sponsoring this month of VINwiki Car Stories. If you get a ticket, no matter where it happens, it can have disastrous effects on your insurance premiums, points on your license, and possible suspension. So it's very important to find a lawyer that's local to wherever you got the ticket. The Ticket Clinic is a national law firm with headquarters in Florida and Texas, but affiliates everywhere, and they can help you fight a ticket and achieve the best possible outcome. They kept me out of jail in Arkansas last year, they've helped tons of my friends, and they can help you too. So visit their link in the description below for a discount.